I never thought I'd feel this way about him. Tyler had always been my anchor, my go-to, the guy I could share everything with. Well, almost everything. We'd been best friends since freshman year of college, bonding over terrible dining hall food, and even worse hangovers. He was the person I texted first thing in the morning, and the last person I talked to before falling asleep. He knew my coffee order, my Netflix password, and every embarrassing story from my childhood. But he didn't know the one thing that mattered most. He didn't know that somewhere between late-night study sessions and weekend road trips, between inside jokes and comfortable silences, I had fallen completely, devastatingly in love with him. It started small, so small I didn't even notice it happening. The way my heart would skip when he'd throw his arm around my shoulders. The way I'd find myself staring at his hands, wondering what they'd feel like intertwined with mine. The way his laugh could pull me out of the darkest moods, like sunlight breaking through clouds. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. I was in too deep, drowning in feelings I had no right to have for my straight best friend. At least, I thought he was straight. Tonight, everything was different. We were sitting on his rooftop, city lights flickering below us like distant stars, the night quiet except for the hum of traffic. He tossed me a half-empty bottle of beer, and I caught it without looking, staring instead at his profile, carved sharp against the glow of street lamps. God, he was beautiful. I'd always known it objectively, the kind of handsome that made people do double takes on the street. But lately, it hurt to look at him. It physically hurt, like staring directly at the sun. "You've been quiet," he said, turning to face me. His voice had that teasing edge, but tonight it didn't cut through me the same way. Tonight, it tugged at something deeper. "Just thinking," I muttered, trying to sound casual, though my heart was racing. He raised an eyebrow, and even that simple gesture made my stomach flip. "About what? Don't tell me it's math homework." I laughed nervously, but it came out uneven, and I immediately regretted it. My mind was a jumble of feelings I didn't know how to sort, let alone name. I looked down at my hands, twisting the bottle between my fingers, fighting the urge to reach for him, to bridge the space that had always felt safe, but now felt electric with tension. He leaned back, propping his elbows on the edge of the rooftop. The movement made his t-shirt ride up slightly, exposing a sliver of skin above his jeans. I looked away quickly, heat rushing to my face. "You know," he said slowly, almost too casually, "you can tell me anything, right?" I froze. The words landed heavier than he intended. I was sure of it. He didn't know. Nobody knew. And I wasn't sure I could tell him either. "Yeah," I said finally, voice tight. "Of course." He studied me, his eyes softening in that way that made my chest ache. Those eyes, hazel, flecked with gold in certain light, had always been my undoing. Good. Because I feel like there's something you're not saying. And there it was. The weight of my confession pressed down on me, suffocating in its intensity. I wanted to tell him, to spill every hidden thought, every longing I had buried for years. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I swallowed hard and forced a laugh. "Nothing," I said. "Just thinking about life." "Life," he repeated, unconvinced. "That's specific. You know, the usual existential crisis stuff. What am I doing with my degree? Will I ever pay off my student loans? Is cereal soup?" He snorted. "You're deflecting." "I'm always deflecting. It's my default setting." He didn't push. Not immediately. We sat in silence, the city breathing around us, and I tried to focus on anything other than the fact that he was close enough to touch, close enough that I could smell his cologne mixed with laundry detergent and something uniquely him. But later, when the air grew colder and the silence stretched between us, he reached over, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. That simple touch, casual as it might have seemed, ignited every nerve in my body. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. But my hands shook slightly, and I knew he noticed. He always noticed. And then he did something I didn't expect. He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. The warmth of his body pressed into me, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of us. I could feel his breath on my face, could count his eyelashes if I wanted to. "You know," he murmured, voice low, almost a whisper, "bros don't fall in love." My breath caught. My heart thundered in my chest. Time stopped. The city fell away. Everything fell away except those words, and the way he was looking at me. Not like a friend, not like a bro, but like something else entirely. I don't know what to say. He didn't need me to say anything. He just held me tighter, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want him to. I wanted to stay right here, suspended in this perfect, terrifying moment forever. When he finally pulled back, there was something different in his eyes. Something vulnerable and raw and questioning. But neither of us spoke. We just sat there, the confession hanging between us like smoke, and I wondered if my life would ever be the same again. The days after that night were complicated. Every time we met, every time our hands brushed or our shoulders touched, that memory was there, burning brighter than ever. I replayed it obsessively. The way he'd held me, the things he'd said, the look in his eyes. What did it mean? Was he telling me he felt the same way? Or was he warning me not to cross that line? I wanted to ask, but the words stuck in my throat every time I tried. Tyler didn't make it easier. He acted like nothing had happened, falling back into our usual rhythm of texts and hangouts and stupid memes. But there were moments, small, fleeting, when I'd catch something different. When he would catch my gaze a little too long, when his hand lingered just a second too long on mine. Moments when he smiled at me like he was hiding something behind his eyes, something I wanted to uncover but didn't dare. We met for coffee 3 days later, and I was a mess of nerves. I spilled my drink twice and couldn't focus on anything he was saying because I was too busy analyzing every gesture, every word, every micro-expression. "You're being weird," he said, laughing as I fumbled with my cup. "I'm not being weird. This is my normal level of coordination." "You're being weird," he insisted, but there was affection in his voice. "What's going on?" "Nothing." The lie was automatic, practiced. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. "Liar." The touch sent electricity up my arm. I pulled back instinctively, and something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or confusion. He withdrew his hand, wrapping it around his own cup instead. The moment passed, but it left a residue of awkwardness that we couldn't quite shake. I wanted to tell him how I felt, wanted to throw caution to the wind and confess everything. But fear held me back. Fear of ruining the friendship. Fear of losing him. Fear of being wrong about what I'd seen in his eyes that night on the rooftop. What if he hadn't meant it the way I'd interpreted it? What if bros don't fall in love was exactly what it sounded like? A reminder, not a confession. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk us. So I swallowed my feelings and pretended everything was fine. One evening, we ended up at the same rooftop again, city lights painting us in soft gold. It had become our place, the spot where we'd always come to talk about real things, away from the noise of dorm life and expectations and pretending. Tonight felt different, though. Charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. He leaned back, stretching his legs, and I sat beside him, careful not to let my knee brush his. Every point of potential contact felt dangerous now, loaded with meaning I couldn't decode. "You've been quiet again," he said, smirking slightly. "What's going on in that head of yours?" "Nothing," I replied automatically. But the lie sounded hollow, even to my own ears. He shook his head slowly. "You're terrible at hiding things. I can see it in your eyes." I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. His gaze held me hostage, and I realized then just how much I craved it. His attention, his closeness, even the smallest touches that made my stomach twist and my heart race. I was addicted to him, to us, to whatever this was. "You ever think about us?" I blurted out, the words rushing past my lips before my brain could catch up. He froze. For a heartbeat, everything hung in the air. Silence, tension, anticipation. The city held its breath. I held mine. And then he laughed softly, low and warm, and it was like the world was holding its breath with me. "Us," he repeated, teasing, though I could see the flicker of something deeper in his eyes. Something that looked suspiciously like hope. "Brothers don't fall in love, remember?" "I know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But what if we did?" The question hung between us, heavy and fragile. I could see him processing it, see the war happening behind his eyes. He bit his lip, a habit I'd noticed but never let myself find attractive until now. He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me, really looked at me, and my stomach flipped. The intensity of his gaze made me feel naked, exposed, like he could see every secret I'd ever kept. Then he leaned in, until our foreheads touched and whispered, then I guess we'd be breaking a lot of rules. My breath hitched. Yeah. And in that moment, I realized he had been feeling it too. All the tension, all the longing, all the stolen glances. It wasn't just me. It was him. It was us. Tyler, I breathed, his name a prayer on my lips. I know, he said softly. I know. We stayed like that, foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air, existing in a bubble where nothing else mattered. I could feel his pulse against mine, rapid and unsteady, matching my own frantic rhythm. I've been terrified, he admitted, voice cracking slightly. Terrified of ruining what we have. Terrified that if I told you, you'd run. Terrified that I was reading everything wrong. You weren't, I whispered. You weren't reading it wrong. His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers intertwining, and it was the most natural thing in the world. Like our hands had always been meant to fit together this way. How long? He asked. How long what? How long have you felt this way? I laughed shakily. Honestly? I don't know. Months. Maybe a year. It happened so gradually, I didn't notice until I was already drowning. Drowning, he repeated softly. That's exactly what it feels like. It took us a while to speak the words aloud, but we didn't need to. Actions spoke louder than confessions. Every small touch, every casual brush of our hands, every long look in the middle of conversation. It all carried meaning now. It wasn't just friendship. It wasn't just comfort. It was desire, affection, and a love that neither of us had been ready to name. But we were ready now. The shift was subtle but seismic. We started sitting closer, touching more openly. His hand would find the small of my back when we walked. My fingers would trace patterns on his arm during movies. We existed in a constant state of contact, like we were making up for lost time, for all the moments we'd held back. Our friends noticed. Are you guys together now? His roommate asked one night, finding us curled up on the couch, my head on Tyler's shoulder, his arm around my waist. Tyler looked at me, eyebrow raised in question. Yeah, I said, surprised by how easy it was. We are. Finally, his roommate groaned. The sexual tension was killing all of us. It wasn't that obvious, Tyler protested. Dude, it was painful. We almost started a betting pool on when you'd finally get your shit together. I laughed, burying my face in Tyler's neck, feeling his chest shake with his own laughter. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, we ended up in his room. Just sitting on his bed, facing each other, knees touching. The intimacy of it felt different now. Purposeful, chosen. I can't stop thinking about you, I confessed softly, my voice trembling. Constantly. It's actually interfering with my ability to function as a human being. He grinned, that crooked smile that made my heart stutter. Good. Because I can't stop thinking about you either. The words, so simple, hit harder than anything I'd imagined. My heart raced, my body alive with warmth. This is insane, I said. We're insane. Maybe, he agreed, shifting closer. But at least we're honest with each other now. I looked up at him, searching his eyes for doubt, but there was none. Only warmth, safety, and something deeper, something I hadn't dared hope for. I never wanted to ruin what we had, I whispered. But I can't ignore this. I can't ignore us. He smiled, reaching out to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. The tenderness of the gesture made my throat tight. You're not ruining anything, he said softly. We're just evolving, becoming something better than before. And then he kissed me. It wasn't our first kiss, that had happened 3 nights earlier, clumsy and urgent and perfect. But this one was different. Slower. Deliberate. It tasted like promises and possibilities, and all the things we'd been too afraid to say. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine again. I love you, he whispered. I think I've loved you for a long time, and I was just too scared to admit it. My eyes burned with unshed tears. I love you too. So much it terrifies me. Don't be terrified, he murmured, pulling me closer. I'm not going anywhere. The weeks that followed were a revelation. We fell into a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. All the comfort of friendship combined with the intensity of new love. We learned each other's bodies the way we'd already learned each other's minds and hearts. Every touch was an exploration. Every kiss a discovery. One night, after a movie marathon at his place, we ended up sitting side by side on the couch, legs tangled together, his laptop balanced precariously on our knees. We were supposed to be working on papers for our respective classes, but neither of us could focus. He shifted slightly, nudging my shoulder with his, and I leaned into him, letting my head rest near his. His arm draped lazily around me, but this time, it didn't feel like a casual gesture. It felt deliberate. It felt like a promise. "Can I tell you something?" I asked, my voice quiet in the dim room. "Always. I used to lie awake at night, imagining what this would feel like. Being with you like this. And I was convinced it would never happen, that I'd spend the rest of my life wanting something I couldn't have." He tightened his hold, pressing me closer. "And now it feels like coming home." He turned his head, pressing a kiss to my temple. "I know what you mean. It's like everything finally makes sense." We stayed like that for hours, talking about everything and nothing. About our fears and hopes and dreams. About the future we were starting to imagine together. About how terrifying and exhilarating it was to finally be honest about what we wanted. "I'm glad you're a terrible liar," he said at one point, laughing softly. "What? That night on the rooftop? The first time? You were so obviously hiding something, and it drove me crazy because I thought maybe you were feeling what I was feeling." "You were feeling it even then?" "Before then," he admitted. "I just didn't know what to do about it. I was so convinced you only saw me as a friend that I tried to bury it. But then we'd be together, and you'd look at me a certain way, and I'd think maybe I wasn't imagining things." "Brothers don't fall in love," I quoted softly. He laughed. "That was me trying to convince myself as much as you. Trying to remind myself not to cross that line. But the thing is, we'd already crossed it. We just hadn't admitted it yet." "When did you know?" I asked. "When did you know you wanted this?" He thought for a moment, fingers tracing absent patterns on my arm. "Remember that weekend last semester when we drove to the coast? Just the two of us?" "Yeah. We were sitting on the beach at sunset, and you were laughing at something stupid I said, and the light hit you just right, and I thought, I want to see you like this for the rest of my life. And that's when I knew I was completely screwed because I was in love with my best friend." My chest felt tight with emotion. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Same reason you didn't. Fear. Cowardice. The certainty that I was reading too much into everything." He paused. "What about you? When did you know?" "Honestly, I don't think there was a single moment. It was more like, one day I looked at you and realized you weren't just my best friend anymore. You were my person. The person I wanted to tell everything to. The person whose happiness mattered more than my own. The person I wanted to build a life with." "And you thought I was straight," he said, amused. "You never gave me any indication you weren't. You dated girls. You never talked about guys." "I dated girls because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I never talked about guys because the guy I wanted was sitting right next to me, and I didn't know how to say it without losing everything." I pulled back slightly to look at him properly. "We wasted so much time." "No," he said firmly. "We took the time we needed. And now we're here, and it's perfect." As the months went on, we fell deeper into our new reality. We learned how to navigate being best friends and boyfriends simultaneously. How to balance the easy companionship we'd always had with the physical intimacy that now defined our relationship. How to argue and make up and communicate in ways that honored both what we'd been and what we were becoming. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of insecurity, times when one of us would pull back, afraid of being too vulnerable, too needy, too much. But we always found our way back to each other. Because that's what love is, choosing each other, over and over, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. One night, we were back on the rooftop where it all began. The city sprawled beneath us, glittering and alive, and Tyler pulled me close against the chill. "You know what I realized?" he said, voice soft against my ear. "What?" "I spent so long trying not to fall in love with you that I didn't notice I'd already fallen. Probably the first time you made me laugh until I cried. Probably the first time you listened to me ramble about photography for 3 hours without getting bored. Probably the first time I realized that when I pictured my future, you were always in it." I turned in his arms, looking up at him. "I love you. In case I haven't said it enough. You could say it 1,000,000 times and it wouldn't be enough. I love you," I repeated, grinning. "I love you, I love you, I love you." He laughed, the sound warming me from the inside out. "I love you too." And then he kissed me, deep and sweet and full of promise. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped up in each other, the city breathing around us. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Our signature gesture, the one that had started everything. "Brothers don't fall in love," he whispered, echoing those first words that had changed everything. But maybe we just did. I smiled, heart full, head spinning, and I knew I wouldn't let go. Not ever. Because this wasn't just falling in love. This was choosing it, fighting for it, building it, brick by brick, kiss by kiss, moment by moment. This was forever, and I'd never been more certain of anything in my life.